Today's episode is going to be for anybody that's curious about the game of Warmachine and potentially looking to get into it. Warmachine is a miniatures game produced by Steamforged Games. Today I will be providing an introduction and review. My name is Ryan. I used to be good at Warmachine. Welcome to Spell Rack. Today I'm going to provide an introduction and review of the tabletop miniatures game Warmachine. First, for an introduction of Warmachine. The game is produced by Steamforged Games, and Warmachine is both simultaneously an old and a new game, which sounds a little bit complicated. Steamforged Games recently acquired Warmachine in 2024, and with that kind of rebooted the game. And so from that sense, Warmachine feels like a new game that is growing quickly. It's engaging community. It feels like it's a really great time to get into the game. At the same time, Warmachine is also an old game that was started around 2000 under its initial publisher, Privateer Press. The game thrived in the of 2010 to 2016 era and was a significant competitor to Warhammer games. And then the game significantly declined both pre-COVID and then during COVID, which led to its acquisition by Steamforged Games. So it's a title that you've heard of before, but I think it needs to be looked at in a new light under its new ownership as a little bit of a newer game with an actual deep history. All right, so the world and settings of Warmachine. Warmachine is quite a unique game. Warmachine is set in a steampunk fantasy world. So you get a lot of your fantasy elements, but you get cool robots and stuff like that. The kind of the system of engineering and physics is a little bit different in this world. The first items, the arcane robots and wild beasts, that's kind of the keystone of the game. Is you have these robots that are kind of the strength of 10 men sort of things. And same thing with the beasts. And they are controlled by wizards. And wizards in this world are warcasters and warlocks. These warcasters and warlocks are able to control these arcane robots and wild beasts onto the battlefield and make them perform tasks, and they fight for them. For anybody that's used to Warhammer, think of the robots like a dreadnought or something like that, or something similar in an Age of Sigmar sense, where you have your larger based models that are much more powerful than troopers. Your leaders are your warcasters and your warlocks, and they then control those beasts and robots. This game is a little bit unique in that your warcaster and your warlock acts like a king piece in chess. If your warcaster or warlock dies, you lose the game. And so while the game is played very similarly to other miniatures games where you have a longer game and there's an attrition basis, this game always has sort of an out in assassinating your opponent's leader. The rest of the game, besides the robots, beasts, and your mages, is your line and elite troops. And those come in varying forms throughout the game. Sometimes it's sword and shield, sometimes it's guys with guns. There's a wide range of troops in that area. Okay, so let's talk basic game mechanics, just at a high-level introduction. Warmachine is a skirmish-styled miniatures game, so it's intended to be sort of a medium-sized game. When you think of skirmish style here, a game can range from generally, I'd say 15 models on the low end, and on the high end, you're probably getting to 40 or 50 models, although that's rare. And your sweet spot is in the 20 to 30 model range. This is very different than something like K or even Age of Sigmar. K runs on much higher extremes, right? You can run some highly elite armies, specifically knights and some guard with big tanks and stuff, and you could run 6 or 8 models. On the other side, between orcs and guard and some other stuff, you can run 200 models. And so this game doesn't have that wide sweeping range of unit counts. Again, on the low end, you're looking at 15. On the high end, you're looking at 50, which is much, much different than, say, 10 to 200. The game is played on an open 4x4 foot map. There are no tiles. It's open measuring, again, like a Games Workshop game. Open measurements also means you get to pre-measure, so nothing is hidden. Everything is known and open information at all times. You can measure whatever you want, whenever you want. The game is based on a 2d6 dice system. An attack is made by rolling 2 dice, though it can be modified to add additional dice. Damage is calculated using 2 dice, although you can also add additional dice. Dice will never exceed 4 or 5 dice in a roll. And so you don't have the giant pools of dice that something like K can add up to. Models similarly make attacks on their own, but each model rolls its own 2d6 hit and damage. And so you're not putting 40 bolter shots together and you're rolling to hit, wound, and crack armor. The unique part of Warmachine that really is the piece that is my favorite that I love is that there are no phases during the game. There's not a movement phase and a psychic phase and a charging phase and a shooting phase. In this game, you pick a model or a unit and you activate that model or unit. It can move and fight or charge and shoot. Whatever it's going to do, it does all of the things by itself. And then you conclude that model or unit, and then you move on to the next model or unit. While this may not seem very consequential on its surface, I think that being able to activate a model or unit in specific orders allows for a more complex puzzled game in Warmachine. If you need to unlock a specific unit to do a task, you might have to activate a unit first to free up that unit so that they can go get something. If your opponent has an obstacle, a unit of, say, chaff in the way, 40K uses a lot of screening, you could use one unit to clear out the screening unit and then activate another unit to get back to the juicier target that you're trying to get to. So it is a very different game. I find it to be much more thoughtful. Again, more like a puzzle and figuring out the puzzle for best execution. The skirmish style of the game also results in 1 to 2 hour games. That includes setup, deployment, setting up the map, and then playing. Tournaments are done in 2-hour rounds, but games normally take 90 minutes, and it leaves you a very good middle ground to play. I find Warmachine to be a wonderful casual game to be played on a Wednesday evening. If you're going to meet with a friend, you can meet at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and be done by 8 or 9 and get home. I find casual games of 40K tend to take upwards of 3+ hours, and it's a lot harder to fit a casual game in than it is a game of Warmachine. Okay, game rules for Warmachine. This is another high point for this game. If I go to the Steamforged Games website and I go to the menu here and I click on Warmachine, we'll click on Warmachine again, and then it says download the app. So Warmachine is produced as a digital game, and you can download the app for free, and the app will have all of the rules for every model in the entire game. There are no codexes that need to be purchased. There are no core rule books that need to be purchased. Everything is on the app. That gives you significant access to the rules, not only for your army, but your opponent's army, making it a much easier open information game. There can be a lot of data to study, but nothing is gate-kept behind books. If there's a new army that comes out, you don't have to go buy the codex to learn what they do. They just get uploaded in the app. Even though it's not your army, you're still going to be able to see what they do. If a new model is released, the rules immediately go up on the app and everybody gets to see what it does. The app also allows you to build armies on it. The other item is it makes Warmachine more of a living game. All miniatures games these days have updates, be it annually or more frequently. And when everything is done in print, rulebooks can go out of compliance quickly, or points can be off rather quickly. Here, having a digital rule set with digital points and digital list building means that when Steamforged Game updates the game of Warmachine, everybody receives the updates and there is really no more dated information out there because nothing is done in print. I find the app to be incredibly valuable, incredibly useful. It's wonderful for scrolling through, sitting and reading and learning. There is lore in addition to the rules presented on the app. Factions and models. Okay, I'm going to take us back to the web page. Again, if I click on the menus, I click on Warmachine, and I can do Discover Warmachine. So this gives you a little bit of what is Warmachine, kind of what I've done already. And it gives you a look at some of the factions, some of the models. If we scroll down here, this is what I wanted to kind of get into, discovering the actual armies. So one of your armies is the Crix Necrofactorum, Signar Storm Legion, Signar Gravediggers, Dusk House Callus, the Winter Corps of Khador, Khador's Old Umbri, Chimera Shadowflame Shard, Orgoth Sea Raiders, and then the Southern Creel's Brine Blood Marauders. So these are each of the factions. Looking at the images here can kind of give you a sense of what the army's going to look like. If you do click on any of the armies, it'll take you to where the actual model range is, and you can see what the characters look like. So here we're going to have a Warcaster, and these are called Warjacks. These are the arcane robots that I spoke of. You have a light Warjack and a heavy Warjack, and so this gives you a feel of the aesthetic a little bit. And then it kind of lets you know how to get into Signar a little bit with your troops, your Warjacks and your Warcasters. As we scroll down, it gives you just more options for what is still in the army. I'm going to go back up here again to Warmachine, and we're going to do Start Warmachine here. This gives you a little bit better of a look at some of the starter sets that exist. This is a 2-player starter set between Dusk and Sea Raiders, and you can see some of this is a starter set for the Signar armies. And so again, it gives you a look here. This is your Warcaster here in the front. This is a heavy Warjack. This is a unit of 3 pieces, and then this is a solo. Again, it just gives you a feel for what the model range looks like. Here we can look at, this is the Brine Blood Marauders. These are trolls. They're a little bit more akin to orcs as far as being a little bit sillier and goofier, but obviously still very powerful pieces. So I would suggest looking around here to look through the armies, the factions, and figure out what you like as far as models are concerned. It's a pretty beautiful range. Community is something else I wanted to get into. Warmachine, both being again an old and new game, means it has a varied community. There are players that have been playing this game for 20 years. There are players that have been playing this game for 1 year or several months, and you will find a mix of them around. Because of the depth of the community from the old players who saw the game nearly die, I would say this community is incredibly inviting and looking to grow. If you're new to an area, if you're new to a game store, and you're looking for a fun community to join that's going to be heavily interested in recruiting new players and engaging with them and helping them out, I think Warmachine is a wonderful place to land. The game is large enough that it has a foundation, but the newness of it, again, the feeling of it is one of growth. And so people want to recruit players, they want to teach players, they want to help players. Going to a convention is a wonderful experience where people are just excited to be there, excited to play games, excited to meet new people, make friends, and then the game itself can be played in a very casual sense. One item that I do want to address here is that Warmachine in its past did have a history of being a very serious and competitive game. That is not a stereotype that I ever agreed with playing Warmachine in the past. Warmachine has a tight rule set, and because of a tight rule set, it lends itself towards more competitive play and more precise play. That doesn't mean that it can't be played in a very casual sense, though. That really is the social contract between you and your opponent when you sit down to play. Think of it like something like Commander for any of those that have played Magic. You can sit down and decide what bracket are you playing. Are you a bracket 2 deck? Or are you a bracket 4 deck? Same thing here. You can sit down and play a tight rule set, which Magic the Gathering very clearly has, but you can decide what sort of game you want to play. And if you're a newer player and you're going to the game store, you can let your opponent know that you're looking for more of a bracket 2 styled game and you're just bringing casual units. You're not trying to bring a meta deck or a meta list that's trying to win an event. You're looking for a more casual experience, and it sets the tone for how you're going to play the game. My review for Warmachine is that I have fallen in love with this game for the second time. I played 10 years ago. I played for several years. I got out of it when the game declined, and I've been playing again now for about a year and releasing content for only for about 3 months now. I think this game is in a tremendous place. I think it fits a good role in the larger game ecosystem. I find the number of models, again, kind of 30-ish, to be a very good sized game. It is not overwhelming or daunting to get into. I think the size of the game, the universe of the game, again, is not overwhelming. You saw the number of factions that existed on the web page. This is not a game with 25 different codexes that go deep with models going back dozens of years. The game is palatable. You can pick it up, read the rules. It's going to take you a while to learn all of the rules and to learn a lot of the models, but it is doable without feeling like it's an overwhelming task. The game time length is one of interest. You can get into a game, you can have a crunchy game, you can have a deep game, and then you can find resolution. Again, games lasting around 90 minutes means that it's much more casually inviting if you're going to play on a Wednesday or a Thursday night. Similarly, if you're going to get together with friends on a weekend, you could plan to play 2 or 3 games at whatever works in your time space. The tight rule set means that there's not a lot of ambiguity when you are playing games, and I think the models in the range that are produced by Steamforged Games are rather beautiful, and so I think you can have a lot of fun hobbying and painting yourself, getting into the faction, learning the lore, playing the games, engaging with the community. I think Warmachine is really hitting on all cylinders at this point. This video is being recorded at the end of 2025. I am very excited for a high level of growth in this game in 2026. It's part of why I'm putting this video out now. I think this game is going to bring a lot of people into the community with people that are going to be looking for a sort of introduction. I will be putting together a new player series as well as a returning player series to help elaborate on what Warmachine has to offer in a little bit more depth. I do also currently have a series about improving at Warmachine, and that's once you've got a handful of games under your belt to help explain the game better. Hopefully you found this review helpful and the introduction. Please leave comments and I'd be very happy to answer those. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.